everybody. So, this is part two of the essential Epicurus, the interesting philosopher. Okay, this is the section called self sufficiency. We regard self sufficiently as a great good, not that we may always have the enjoyment of it, but a few things, but that if we do not have many, we may have but few enjoyments in the genuine conviction that they take the sweetest pleasure in luxury who have least need of it, and that everything easy to procure is natural, while everything difficult to obtain is superfluous. No, I wouldn't agree to the fact that to the argument or theory that if something is easily gained, it is therefore natural, and that if it's difficult, it's therefore superfluous, meaning pompous, meaning luxurious. No, because there's a lot of things you can do that are easy that wouldn't necessarily be considered natural or something that you should do. Plain dishes offer the same pleasure as luxurious table. When the pain that comes from want is taken away, bread and water offer the greatest pleasure when someone in need partakes of them. Okay, yeah, that's true though. You're super hungry, so your taste buds are shifted to a different focus. Versus if you've had an appetizer and then eat something later, and then after that, again something later. Depends how many meals you have. So, and if your mind knows, I'd argue that you're going to have more food later, the way in which you enjoy the food will be different as well. So, simply because he's using a bread and water when someone's in need, I'm not sure if that would be sufficient evidence. Becoming accustomed, therefore, to simple and not luxurious fare is productive of health, and makes humankind resolve to perform the necessary business of life. Well, no, you won't get enough vitamins and minerals to function. A mono diet causes deficiencies. This is very apparent in areas where the people are starved. And actually, if you want your populace to work hard and get around the business of life, I'd argue you want them well fed. Not well fed as in like fat Americans. I'm talking about the idealized situation where your populace is like a Spartan population, where they are fit and ready for battle and intelligent and overall healthy, and there's family and there's like healthiness. Plenty of people neglect their bodies to get on with the business of life, who are starved to have just bread and water, meaning i.e. not nutritious dense food, and that ends up hurting their overall brain function and causes their organs to fail. So I wouldn't agree with his view that simply because you want to be self-sufficient, that therefore means you need to eat a very overly simplistic diet. That does not correlate. You can live a minimalistic, simplistic life, but also have a diverse nutritional meal plan. So I disagree with that. When we approach luxuries after long intervals, it makes us better disposed toward them and renders us fearless of fortune. Yeah, obviously, if you've been not having any type of luxury mini breaks, of course, when the opportunity presents itself and you participate in it, of course, it's going to have a deeper effect on you because you've denied yourself it. That's obvious, but that doesn't then therefore mean that in order to be truly self-sufficient, you should therefore not eat a diverse meal and just have like bread and water or beans and tortillas. You have to diversify it to survive. You can have those as staples. You can have that as a staple, right? I believe the French and Italian have and every meal there's a bread basket on the table. So you participate in that, you eat it, but you know salad's coming, the entree's coming, then the dessert is coming. If you're unfortunate, you have one meal, but that one meal, it has like, my grandpa used to make hamburger helper, and that was like the poor people's food, they call it. It's in a box, it's pasta and ground beef with cheese. And there's different variations. But it's like you put carbs and protein and a little bit of calcium in the meal, and that's supposed to be complete. If my grandpa literally just gave me bread and water, I probably would have faded away. We were already on a very deficient meals already, you know, and that is why, you have to be careful. You get sick. So I wouldn't agree with his whole paragraph here. Logically, if you break it down, he's saying self-sufficiency therefore means simple diets, and simple diets will help you do better and participate more. And then the other branch of that is that you therefore then, when you do have luxuries, because you enjoyed that little mini luxury because you are uh, eating plainly, that is therefore going to help you become more sufficient, or at least partakes in the self-sufficient benefit or trail of reasoning. And I'd say no. You can eat a well-balanced meal and not participate in luxuries too much. Both, like, okay, if he's mixing up luxury as in like he's using both the material side, but he's also using the food side. And what would a luxurious meal look like? Would it be, it doesn't always have to be like a giraffe head. It doesn't have to be some exotic meat. Okay, this can be an overly pompous chef dish that's on the Food Network all the time. That is food that's just like laboratory science made food, and then some chef goes voila, and all the critics on the panel go like, "Oh my god, that's amazing! Oh, it's so luxurious." No, real luxurious food would be like country food to me. Like, I'm not just talking about like southern wholesome food. I'm talking about when a grandma who's been cooking that food for 25 years busts it out and you eat it, you're like, man, these 5-star chefs who've been in culinary art school, who focus on the particular shape of the onion when you cut it, making sure you do the minced versus the chopped versus the sliced, and getting too anal about the way in which you cut the vegetables, right? That, many could argue that's not truly the culinary art. That's the pompous side of it. That's the pageantry of it, many could say, right? That's the corporatization of it. But the real mode of cooking is what your grandma used to bust out in the kitchen. And that, that's more luxurious, I'd argue, than his food of like, the whatever is in bread and water is luxurious. That's what he's saying. I'm saying no. There's flavorful food that just because it has like, or maybe overly stimulates your tongue, that doesn't mean it's luxurious. I've had luxurious French macaroon cookies, and they look really fancy, but they tasted like trash, and I'd rather just have some brownies or a plain chocolate chip cookie, right? Like a donut would be much more enjoyable. Like a donut shop in a really broken down neighborhoods are usually the best. They just got like, buttermilk batter and it's hot and glazed, and you're like, And if that's much better than if I go to a French brasserie, whatever you want to call it, or what is that? What is that name? There's one that's not too far, but there's a lot of French restaurants, and you can have this weird looking dessert, just like, it looks pretty, like I want to take a picture of, and then you taste it and you're like, no thank you. I guess it's like you get tricked with your eyes instead of your tongue when it comes to food. So I'd have to argue with him and say, if he was alive and I was talking to him, I'd say you need to define luxury. Are you talking about presentation or flavor? Are you saying that nothing that the peasants could eat could be considered luxurious, or that only what the elites eat are luxurious? Like, I have to really dig into it in with him. And now he's gonna talk about genuine pleasure and prudence. Genuine pleasure seems like short, seems kind of like not interesting, but maybe we'll get into the prudence part, because I'd be interested to see what he says about that. But what do you think, family, about self-sufficiency? That topic's part of the American history. The founding fathers were very into self-sufficiency. They didn't mean as in let the poor people starve to death while all the corporate capitalists eat up all the wealth. That's not what they meant. They meant as in, if a man wanted to have a farm, if a family wanted to be able to have some land, as long as they could take care of it, they could do pretty well. They didn't have to depend upon the grid. But now in condensed cities, that's becoming a different issue, right? Because they're not able to actually grow their own food. They're forced to buy it. So they're participating in an economic system in which they are webbed. So, anyways, the self sufficiency angle is very apparent today in discussions, and was in the founding of the United States, and is also for the Greeks appears to be a very important topic. So, what do you think about self sufficiency?